Okay, welcome to our class today. We are dealing with the introduction to ocean, seas, and land coast. And in this topic, we are starting with the introduction of the hydrosphere, where we are talking about uh, the Earth. The surface is usually covered by a mass body of water known collectively as the hydrosphere. So about 71% of the Earth's surface is covered by water. And most of this water is found in the oceans. This makes oceans extremely important in influencing climate, weather, and human activities, and also the survival of living organisms. Without the ocean, Earth will not have the temperatures, rainfall patterns, and biological diversity that supports life. So we are going to talk about the meaning of oceans, seas, coast. Uh, so oceans, these are largely continuous bodies of salt water on Earth. They are normally very huge, deep, and cover a wide geographical areas. So the Earth contains 5 major oceans. We normally have the Pacific. This is always the largest and the deepest ocean, followed by the Atlantic Ocean, the second largest, the Indian Ocean, which is now which borders Africa. So it is normally shared by Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. We have the Southern Antarctic Ocean. Then we have the Arctic Ocean. This is now the smallest, and it is also very shallow. It's almost now the shallowest oceans that we have in the world. So oceans store heat. They influence global climate, support marine life. So when we talk about marine life, these are now the animals, the plants that live in the ocean. And it provides major routes for transport. So we go now to the seas. So these seas are smaller bodies of salt water, partly enclosed by land and connected to an ocean. They are shallower than oceans, and they are often located near continents. So the first example, we have the Mediterranean Sea, we have the Red Sea, the Arabian Sea, the Caribbean Sea. So these are the examples of the seas we have. So because seas are closer to land, they are highly important for fishing, trade, tourism, and also human settlement. So let's talk about the coast. So a coast, this is a zone where land meets the sea or ocean. It includes beaches, cliffs, bays, deltas, and coastal landforms. The coasts are dynamic environments shaped by waves, tides, currents, and human activities. So when we want now to talk about, for example, our coast in Kenya, where we have the coast of Mombasa, where normally we have the beaches, and we also have most of the lives of animals that lives there. We have the coral reefs, and now those are the coast. An introduction of the parts of the coast. So now we are going to talk about the importance of oceans, seas, and coast. Oceans, seas, and coastal environments play a critical role in both natural and human systems. So we want to talk about the climate and weather regulation. So oceans observe, store, and release heat. So this helps global temperatures and influences wind patterns, rainfall distributions, and storms. So, for example, the Indian Oceans affects climate in East Africa. So this includes the monsoon winds and also the rainfalls. So we talk about now the economic activities, and one is that they support the major economic activities such as we have fishing. So normally this is the highest. It provides food and employment, the people who work there. Then we have transport and trade. So the ports, and there is also shipping routes from one continent to another. Then we have tourism. So these are beaches where tourists makes tourists to be attracted in those areas. For example, to go of the beaches of Mombasa and others. We have the coral reefs. Then we have sea sports. We have also mining, the offshore, the offshore oil, natural gas, salts, and minerals. We have the biodiversity and the ecosystems. That is also another importance of oceans, seas, and coast. Oceans contains a wide variety of living organisms. This includes fish, coral reefs, seabirds, and marine mammals. These ecosystems are essential for food chains and global ecological balance. Then we have the coastal processes. So the coast is constantly shaped and changed by natural processes. So the first process, we have the process of waves. So waves are formed by wind blowing over the water surface. These are the main agents of coastal erosion, transportation, and deposition. So waves can be constructive. So constructive, these are deposit materials. They build beaches. Then we have other destructive waves. So this means they erode. So they erode cliffs and also remove materials. So they destroy the sides of the seas and also the oceans. Then we have tides. So it's another coastal process. So tides are the periodic rise and fall of the sea level caused by gravitational pull of the moon and sun. Tides influence fishing, navigation, and the formation of tidal floods and estuaries. Then we have another coastal process, the ocean currents. So ocean currents are large-scale movements of seawater. They may be warm or cold and influence climate. We have rainfall, fishing grounds. We have one example of the ocean currents. We have the Mozambique current. So it is always along the African coast. This is an example of a warm current. So we want now to talk about the coastal landforms. So coastal features are classified based on whether they are formed by erosion or deposition. So lastly, we talked about erosion. This is now the destructive part. Then we have now deposition, which is now the constructive part. So erosional landforms, these are formed where waves wear away the coastline. For examples include the cliffs, the wave-cut platforms, we have caves and stacks, bays and headlands. We have now the depositional landforms, now the constructive part. These are formed when waves drop materials along the coast. So example includes the beaches. So when we talk about the beaches, an example of the port of Mombasa, now we have the deposition or the depositional forms or features that are carried away from the lake towards the shores. Now they form these beaches. So the sand, those materials acts also as tourist attraction. So we have now one of the depositional feature is beaches. So normally tourists come to Kenya for to the shores of the coastal areas of Mombasa, go and enjoy themselves in the beaches. Then we have the speeds and bars, and we have the tombolos and deltas as well. From specific rivers, we have the Tana River and others. So we are now talking about the human activities along the coast. Human activities along the coast. So people use coastal regions for various purposes, and this has both positive and negative impacts. So the positive impacts, this helps human being. So we have one which is the construction of ports and harbors. We have one which is along the Kilindini in Mombasa. That is an example of a harbor that we have in Kenya. So another thing is that it helps in the tourist development sector. Then we have marine fishing and aquaculture. So when we talk about marine fishing is when we have fish from the coast, and we sell it to the market. Then we have transport and trade routes from each, for example, one continent to another. So we have now the negative impacts or the negative activities of the coast. So the negative activities, we have overfishing. So when we talk about overfishing, so this normally leads to the depletion of the fish stocks. So when you talk about stock of fish, now these are the fish that are in the ocean or in the ocean or in our coast. Another thing is pollution from oil spills. We have sewage from along the coast or on that water bodies. When we spill sewage or oil to the waters, this will affect for example, the aquatic life, for example, the coral reefs, the animals, the marine life that lives in the ocean. Then we have destruction of mangroves and coral reefs. So mangrove are the forests that are along the coast. These are now the forests in those areas. Then we have coastal erosion. These are normally caused by poorly planned development along the coast. So we now go again to the environmental issues affecting oceans and coast. So we have several challenges that threaten the ocean and the coastal areas. Number one, which is almost the main, we have the coastal erosion. So human activities such as sand harvesting, destruction of vegetation, these accelerate erosion. So, for example, now we cut trees along the ports of Mombasa, for example, the mangrove forest. Erosion will be very high because there will be no vegetation cover. That will be a problem to the environment. So this normally cause loss of beaches and coastal property. When you talk about the property, these are the mangrove forest and also the sand or the deposits from the ocean that is always brought from the waves from the oceans towards the shores of the coast, for example, of Mombasa. Then we have the marine pollution from ships. We have said we have routes from borders from continents that are used for travels. So ships, industries, and land-based waste harms marine life and affects tourism. So when we have pollution, animals can die, plants can die. So animals, for example, aquatic life, for example, we have We have the fish and the coral reefs can die, and it affects tourism. So we have climate change and sea level rise. Rising sea levels threaten low-lying coastal areas, and this normally causes flooding, saltwater intrusion, and displacement of communities. Then we have now the destruction of marine ecosystems. So we have the coral reefs, mangroves, and sea grass beds are being destroyed by pollution, overfishing, and climate change. So in conclusion, oceans, seas, and coasts are vital components of the Earth's graphical systems. So this influence climate, provide economic resources, support biodiversity, and shape the landscape of coastal regions. Understanding these features it normally helps us appreciate the importance and highlights the need for sustainable management to protect them for the future generation.
The continual battle between land and sea is apparent here, along the northwest coast of America, where erosion is the predominant force. Millions of years ago, this coastline would have looked very different. Even though the land is tough basalt, the relentless attack of the sea has eroded it in spectacular ways. Cliffs are formed when weathering weakens the top of the land, and destructive waves attack the bottom of the rock face. Weak points in the rock are affected most, and eventually form a hollow, called a wave-cut notch. The overhanging rock collapses, and the rubble is carried out to sea, forming a wave-cut platform. The whole process continues, causing the cliff to slowly, but continually, retreat. But erosion also produces more unusual features. Hollow caves can be carved out by the water and eventually break through, forming an arch. The continual erosion keeps widening the arch until it can no longer support the land on top. The arch collapses and leaves a headland on one side and a tough outcrop of rock on the other, called a stack. Whilst erosion constantly attacks our coastlines, deposition builds characteristic landforms. When constructive waves wash onto the shore, they dump material carried in the water, like sand, pebbles, and rocks. This builds up beaches. Whether a beach is soft and sandy or hard and pebbly depends on both the wave energy and the local geology. A narrow, extended stretch of beach that projects out to sea is called a spit. These are formed by deposition as well, but wind conditions also have a part to play. Where the prevailing wind blows at an angle to the coast, it causes longshore drift. Material is moved along the coast at an angle. Over time, the wind and waves affect the end of the spit, causing it to curve to create a hook end. This creates a sheltered area protected from incoming waves. Silt is deposited and mudflats or salt marshes can form. Erosion and deposition have created the world's beautiful and dynamic coastline and continue to affect these ever-changing landscapes.